All right, let's get into a really cool story. We're going to take a look at a small, mountainous nation that is coming up with a brilliant new way to fight back against climate change. This is all about Bhutan's plan to build a financial shield to protect itself from disasters before they even strike. And really, that's the whole problem, isn't it? When a disaster can wipe out a valley in a matter of hours, your standard playbook is just way too slow. The stakes are unbelievably high, and for a country like Bhutan, this isn't some far-off theoretical problem. It's a constant, urgent reality they have to live with. To really get a handle on the challenge, you have to picture Bhutan. It is this absolutely stunning Himalayan kingdom, but its very geography, all those steep mountains, powerful rivers, and massive glaciers, that beauty is also what makes it so incredibly vulnerable to a warming planet. So what are we actually talking about here? Well, the threats are specific and they are relentless. You've got flash floods and landslides that can happen in an instant. You've got massive river floods that can swamp entire valleys. But there's one particular threat that's growing at a terrifying speed. And that brings us to this critical threat called a GLOF, or a glacial lake outburst flood. Okay, so imagine a huge lake high up in the mountains, held back only by a natural dam of ice and rock. As the glacier melts, that lake just keeps getting bigger and bigger. When that natural dam finally breaks, it unleashes a catastrophic wall of water downstream with almost no warning, a ticking time bomb, basically. And this makes it so clear that this isn't just about some abstract environmental problem. We're talking about people's lives, their homes, their farms. And for Bhutan, it's also about the very engine that powers the country, its hydropower projects. These are a huge source of revenue, and they are often built right in the path of these potential floods. So, faced with a threat this vast, what do? How do you prepare? Well, you create a financial first aid kit. A system that's designed not to just rebuild after everything is destroyed, but to deliver life-saving help in those critical first hours and days. And this system has a name, the SADRIF-BT facility. Now, don't worry about the acronym. Just think of it exactly like that, a pre-approved high-tech emergency fund. Its whole purpose is to flip the script on disaster response by getting money where it's needed immediately, completely bypassing the weeks or months it can normally take to assess all the damage and get aid approved. This quote from the plan really sums up the mission perfectly. Okay, that sounds a bit jargony, right? Let's break it down. Ultra-rapid sovereign liquidity, that's just a fancy way of saying immediate cash for the government to use on things like search and rescue. And stabilized public finances, that means stopping a natural disaster from turning into a complete economic meltdown for the country. So, how does the shield actually work? Well, it's not just one big pile of money. It's way smarter than that. It's a cleverly designed system with 3 distinct layers, and each one is tailored to protect a different part of the country. It works on 3 scales all at once. So at the very top, you have the macro layer. That's the big picture, protecting the nation as a whole. Then in the middle, you have the Meso layer, which shields the country's most important economic assets. And right down at the ground level, the micro layer is all about getting help directly to the families who need it most. This table lays it out perfectly. The macro layer gives the government quick cash for a large-scale emergency response. The meso layer is like targeted insurance for the really critical stuff. Think power plants, roads, bridges, so they can be fixed fast. And the micro layer? That's about getting cash directly into the hands of families for food, shelter, whatever they need right away. Okay, this is where it gets really, really cool. How does this system get the money out so incredibly fast? Well, the secret sauce is how the money gets released. It doesn't wait for some committee to declare a disaster. It relies on something much, much faster: data. The whole thing works using what's called a parametric trigger. It's a fancy term for a simple, brilliant idea. Think of it like this. Way before any disaster happens, experts set a clear rule. For example, if the river gauge at this specific spot measures a water level of 5 meters, release the funds. The moment the data hits that magic number, that parameter, boom, the payout is triggered automatically. No debate, no delay, no red tape. And this slide just shows you how much of a game changer this is. The old way, disaster hits, then you start the slow, painful process of checking the damage, filling out forms, and waiting for help. The smart way, the data itself is the trigger. That leads to an automatic payout, which means you can take immediate life-saving action. It's proactive, not reactive. Just look at that number, 7 days or less. That is the goal, from the second a trigger is hit to the money being in the bank, ready to use. In the world of disaster aid, where help can sometimes take months, 7 days is revolutionary. It is literally the difference between a community getting help when it needs it most and getting it far too late.
So what data are we talking about? This isn't just some guy with a rain bucket. We're talking about a serious high-tech network. Satellites are feeding near real-time flood maps. There are river gauges constantly measuring water levels, sensors for rainfall, and critically, monitors on those high-risk glacial lakes like Thortomi. It all feeds into one system that acts like a countrywide alarm bell.
Okay, this all sounds amazing, right? But is it just a cool idea on a PowerPoint slide? Absolutely not. This financial shield has a very clear roadmap to become a reality, and it's all designed to build a truly resilient future for Bhutan.
So what's the ultimate payoff here? What does Bhutan get from all this work? Well, it's a whole cascade of benefits. A faster response, which will absolutely save lives. It protects their vital hydropower income. It helps them avoid taking on crippling emergency debt. And as a really cool side benefit, all of this data collection makes the country way better at predicting and planning for what might come next.
And here's the proof that this is a real plan with real steps. It's a practical, multi-year roadmap. It all starts with diagnostics and planning, then moves to actually building the technical backbone and all those trigger systems. Then they'll launch a pilot program to test everything out, and finally, they'll scale it up to be fully integrated into the national plan. This is a serious, structured effort.
And that brings us to the final and I think most important question. Bhutan is developing this for its own unique challenges, for sure. But the core idea here, using data, technology, and prearranged money to act before a disaster spirals out of control, that idea is universal. As climate change brings more danger and uncertainty to all of us, could this small nation's big idea be a blueprint for how we all protect ourselves in the future?